Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Bauman, and I'll be talking about observations for data collection technique. According to Schmuck, observations are a means of collecting qualitative data that involve carefully watching and systematically recording what you see and hear going on in a particular setting. Participant observation is the form that most teachers partake in, and this is where the researcher is a participant in an activity being studied. The purpose of this is to observe the activities, people, and physical aspects of a situation, as well as engage in activities that are appropriate to a given situation that provides useful information. So there are three types of participant observation. They include active participant observer, privileged active observer, and passive observer. Active participant observer is where you are fully immersed in what is being done. You're recording observations in a systematic way, and this is usually the most common experiencing data collection technique. Privileged active observer is where you observe at a time when you are not directly responsible for the teaching of a lesson. So this could be during a special time like gym or music or library, and it's an opportunity for you to withdraw, stand back, and watch what is actually happening. And you're able to move in and out of the role of teacher, aide, and observer. And then the last is passive observer, and this is where you are no longer assuming the responsibility of the teacher and you are just solely focused on collecting data. So observations are considered a qualitative data collection technique. It was mentioned in our text that unstructured observations are more typical of qualitative data collection since they are free-flowing, which allows the teacher or researcher to shift focus from one event to another as new and perhaps more interesting events arise. It was recommended to start with a broad sweep of the classroom and then gradually narrow your focus as you gain a clearer sense of what is most pressing. Observations can be very challenging because there is so much that you want to write down and document in your field notes, but it was recommended that you have to pick and choose what is most important and make sure to record that. They also suggested to look for paradoxes and focus on the question of what are the unintended consequences of action. So there are a lot of strengths with this data collection technique. One of them is that these experiences can be valued to observe the social interactions of students and the impact of a specific instructional strategy. It's also nice to take a step back, and it can be refreshing for teachers to see their students through a different lens. Teachers can gather data about actual student behaviors as opposed to asking students to report their perceptions or feelings. And it also enables the teacher to see some things that students might not be able to report about themselves. Videotaping was another thing that was mentioned in our text for observations, and this allows the teacher to observe even more than they would normally be able to with their own eyes. Some of the weaknesses include that it's very hard to teach and collect data at the same time. As mentioned before, you are trying to collect as much data as you can through observations, and there's a lot to document, so it's hard to pick and choose. So having to do that on top of teaching can be very challenging. And then to be a privileged active observer, you might be required to give up valuable time that is usually dedicated to duties other than teaching. So for example, if you're going to watch your class participate in library for your observations, most specials take place during teacher's planning period, so you'll have to give up your planning period in order to go and collect those observations. So what concerns do we have about this data collection technique from a validity, reliability, and/or ethical perspective? So the first one is that the presence of the teacher as a data factor can change student behavior. There's a great potential for students to behave differently or to say different things if they know they're being watched carefully, especially if they see their teacher walking around with a clipboard, taking notes, observing something they might not usually do on a day-to-day basis. Also, in some cases where specific behaviors are being sought, the teacher or researcher may have to wait for extended periods of time in order to observe that desired behavior. And since behavior can be adversely effective due to the presence of an observer, still the desired behavior may never occur, even if it is a normal everyday occurrence. Also, if teachers are working together on an action research project, different observers may see different things, even while they are observing the same event.